finally, on my left, we have Deevya. So let's invite Deevya as the final speaker. Again, to repeat, Deevya is from GrabTaxi, which is the company for My Taxi. Deevya, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Deevya. So my role is basically to give effect to GrabTaxi's social mission, which I'll talk about, through public policy and research work. And I look after that for the all the 6 countries in which we operate. Focus of my talk today is I'm going to sort of move beyond the ways in which we've used data to talk about the ways in which we're giving back through our what's become a very big supply of data that we now have. And I'll talk specifically about a very exciting partnership that we have with the World Bank to help improve traffic safety and congestion across the region through the use of our real-time GPS data. Now, a big part of that story is our social mission, and so I'll talk start by talking a little bit about our social mission and our product as well. So why do we exist? Why did we start up? Well, our founder, Anthony Tan, saw 3 significant problems with taxi transportation in Southeast Asia, and he's Malaysian, and this company is Malaysian-born. So he knew he'd travelled a lot in Southeast Asia, and he'd seen some issues. Yep. The first thing he saw was that taxi drivers were really struggling to earn enough to live day to day through traditional methods. So the traditional methods of hailing a cab, picking up passengers on the street, and accepting passengers through calls, just because of the inefficiencies of that system. So say I'm sitting here looking for a taxi. There might be an idle taxi wandering around, maybe near my hotel. Right, so it's a bit of an inefficient system, and it resulted in lower incomes for taxi drivers. The second was he noticed that traffic congestion and unsafe roads affected society, especially the poor, and the role that we play in this I'll talk about later on with my example of the World Bank project. And the third big one was that taxi transport was perceived to be very unsafe for women. So when I first travelled to Southeast Asia, I think it was back in 2009, I was a bit afraid to jump in a taxi alone at night, and this was before GrabTaxi existed. But now with drivers on the app, I can actually see a difference in quality. I feel safer. And I'm very happy even going alone at early hours of the morning. So in these 3 areas particularly, we've made a social impact, and we have a very strong social mission that's kind of, it was there from the outset, but it's been formalized now as we've grown. So our social mission, we've got 3 things that we're currently focused on. The first is to revolutionize public transport with safety, speed, and certainty. The second is to improve the lives of passengers and drivers, right? And the third is to share big data with government to improve traffic congestion and road safety. So just in terms, I'll talk in more detail about those 3, but together they comprise our social mission. So we're not a taxi operator. We don't own assets. What we do is we leverage technology, I think quite well, to solve those problems. And it's a very, very simple application. I hope most of you have had a chance to use it here, either in KL or maybe Penang. Sorry, just the first. Yep. So what it basically is if you go onto the app, you type in your starting point and your destination, and you click confirm booking. You can put in some notes for the driver, and the drivers who are available will basically be able to bid and take up your booking. And then in a few minutes, in under a minute actually, you'll be able to find out whether or not you've got a booking. So there's three pain points which three areas where we really add value for passengers, and this is a big part of our social mission, because it actually solves social problems, right? The first is the safety. So one of the interesting things on our application, I've used this before in Manila. I was traveling very early in the morning. You can actually send a link to your family and friends sitting at home, and they can see where your taxi is driving. It's a bit interesting and curious, but yeah, they can basically see where your taxi is driving, and they can make sure that you've reached your destination. The next one is certainty. So we realized that there was a lot of conflict going on, and this conflict can result in violence, unhappiness, with the fares, like arguments about taxi fares, especially between tourists who might not know the city and then taxi drivers. So with our app, it gives you a fare estimate, right? So you know roughly, and I think I've spoken to some of you that you've managed to get a fare estimate in a new city, and you can check that the driver's charging you approximately the right fare. And the third one is speed. So you know whether or not you've got a taxi in under a minute. And we find that this can be quite important for people who might not be able to wait outside in the sun or the rain. I mean, the elderly. So we find that it's a particular benefit for them, because they can sit inside their home and they know within a minute whether or not they've got a taxi. Okay, so we did a study recently, and we were able to quantify, I'll give you the numbers later, but we were able to quantify the level of income, the improvement in income and quality of life of drivers, the impact that we've had on that. Right, and apart from that, so we've had an impact on those three areas. So with women's safety, we find that approximately, I think over 70% of our passengers are women, and they prefer our app for those safety features. This comes from our study. So we found that drivers, we surveyed over 600 drivers across the region, and we found that drivers in Malaysia specifically earn up to 108% more income, and they gain training in new technology. And then we found that the number of bookings and the increases in safety led to those improvements in income. Okay, so this sort of this makes sense in terms of business as well, right? So we've been growing. We're in 6 countries and 22 cities across ASEAN, 5.5 million app downloads. We've got 10 bookings per second and over 101,000 drivers across the region. So that leads me to an extension of our social mission, which is the Smart Data Partnership. Right? So we've now gotten to a stage where we've got enough data and we're kind of mature enough as a company. I mean, we're quite young. We're only about 2.5 years old, right? But we've gotten to a stage where we're mature enough that we can actually give back in terms of data. And so we've done this through an interesting partnership with the World Bank. So we've partnered with the World Bank to help them create what's a traffic data platform called Open Traffic. And that will help governments improve traffic congestion and road safety in Malaysia, but also the code for this it's all open source. So provided that other governments around the world are able to get data somehow. I mean, we can help in the 6 countries in which we operate, but provided that other governments are able to get the data somehow, they'll be able to implement that in their countries as well. So there's four policy areas in which our this open traffic platform will help governments. And remember, it's going to be provided free of cost. So there might be internal steps that governments need to take to sort of build teams to manage this, but otherwise the product is actually free of cost.
Deevya, about 2 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
Yep, nearly done. All right, sorry, just that slide. Yeah. So the first one, so we did some great tests recently in Cebu in the Philippines, which is if you've been to Cebu, the roads are very heavily congested. And the World Bank had already been doing traffic data work there. So we did some tests using the prototype of this platform. They can actually optimize the traffic signal timings, right, to improve congestion. They can plan efficient public transit policies, right, depending on where the congestion is. And they can identify where roads need to be repaired and where there's construction. Based on the journey times of taxis, the journey times on those roads. And just, I think the most exciting part is able to plan emergency response routes in a better way based on where the congestion is and where accidents are. And I'll just show you this last slide. So what we've provided is real-time GPS data. So on the left-hand side, you can see the results showing the data that was available, the congestion and journey time data that was available before we provide our taxi data, and on the right-hand side, it's after. So you can see it's far more rich, and we've been told it's quite a high-quality data as well. And then, yeah, so we're hoping to engage in more partnerships moving on as we mature, provided, of course, I mean, there's always data security and privacy issues, but for projects like the World Bank partnership, we managed to find a good way to do that.
Great, thank you so much, Deevya.